The Ram Promaster comes with 10 tie-down locations. You'll find these tie-downs, and they use M8 bolts. And you can easily remove these. What's nice about this is that it provides 10 locations for you to bolt your floor and insulation down to the van. This is an M8 bolt. So that's the metric size thread that you'll need to buy bolts to hold your floor down. Now, of course, you're going to need more than just these 10, but it's a good starting place, and you might as well use what they've already given you. Now you have a problem where you have to transfer the location of those tie-down holes up through your insulation and into your plywood. So I came up with a solution, and it's kind of a unique solution. I'm using pencils. So I have a lot of pencils in my shop, so I cut these pencils, and those pencils fit right in those holes. I put those pencils in, and then I took my insulation and I laid it on top, and I stepped on the insulation. That put an indent into the bottom of the insulation. Then I took it out, and then I simply drilled a hole right through the insulation. Now I'll just put the plywood on top and drill a hole up through into the plywood. Then, to be sure that those holes were straight, I took full-size pencils and I stuck them in the holes and made sure that all the pencils stood straight up and down to ensure that I had a straight hole right into the threads. Now, with all the insulation installed, you can look at those pencils, and since they're straight up and down, I know that there's a clear shot right into the threads. Now I can use that insulation in order to drill the holes in the plywood. It's very important with this XPS insulation that you don't go tight up against the walls. If you go tight up against the walls, it might squeak, and you don't want to sound like you have a bunch of crickets in the van as you're going down the highway. So you actually want a gap between the wall and your insulation. That gap, I highly recommend, be filled with an adhesive caulk to provide a cushion, and we'll get to that in a future video. Hole number 2. Boy, I'd like to say it's easy to drill holes, but it's not when you're drilling it through a perfectly good van. Put that rod through there so I can look underneath and see where it is. These holes, it's easy, but when it gets to be holes over there, it might be a little bit more difficult. So, doing well so far. Boy, I hit that one perfectly. It's exactly where I thought it was going to go. Measurement and a little bit of luck. In this section I didn't do too bad. I expected the holes to be on this line, and one hole is here, about an inch off. And the other hole is here, about 1 inch off. Not too bad. Drilling the first serious hole in the van, using that donut magnet to catch the shavings. Riv nut will sit inside. Yep, that's perfect. Number 2. Now I knew those 2 holes were clear on the other side, but before I drilled the other holes, I need to put a drill stop on this so I don't plunge in. So the donut magnet's really nice, cleans up most of the shavings, but not all of them, as you can see. Be sure I have all those metal shavings off, so a little bit of painter's tape helps out quite a bit. Then before putting the riv nut in, hit it with a little bit of this Rust-Oleum paint or primer, but remember I painted the entire bottom with the Rust-Oleum paint, so I'm going to hit that from the top and from underneath. And next we'll install the riv nut. The riv nut's pretty simple. I'm sure I'll do a video on this riv nut tool. Just insert the riv nut. Should show you what that looks like. So this is the riv nut that we're going to put in. It is an 8mm riv nut, which matches the same 8mm thread pattern that was in the tie downs that were pre-installed in the van. The tie downs were only on the sides, so I need these in the center to hold the floor down. Squeeze it down, tighten it up again, squeeze, tighten, squeeze, tighten, squeeze, until it's completely installed. Then you can just unscrew it and you're done. It's quite simple to use. A lot of people show using this on YouTube and make it seem so much more difficult than I've found it to be. It really doesn't take that much strength. I do recommend when you buy a riv nut tool, you buy one with the longest handles possible. If you're only going to do one van, the manual Riv-nut tool is good enough. If you were going to go into a production phase, then you might get the powered one, but for what I'm going to do, even if I do a couple vans, this one's good enough. Besides that, I'll get a little exercise, which sure isn't going to hurt. And we'll do the next one. So it's quite simple. You just take the Riv-nut, thread it on the tool all the way down, place it in. Here you can see the underside of the van, and you can see the Riv-nuts are completely crushed the way they should be, and that the primer, since it was wet, has sealed right up against the Riv-nut, providing a close to rust-proof finish. Of course, there's nothing that's truly rust-proof, but that will slow it down for quite some time. I like to do these one or two at a time so that I can get the Riv-nut in there while the paint is still wet, so it'll seal up a little bit better. So, on to drilling the other holes. Added the drill stop before I continue any further. Floor is now complete. My floor is made up of 1 inch of XPS insulation and a 1/2 inch of birch plywood. To finish off this edge, I'm going to use a piece of 1.5 inch aluminum angle, which will fit over just like that. There'll be very little walking in and out the back section or garage area of the van. So that's all I'm going to do here. Let me fly you around to the other side, the sliding glass door. Ready? Here we go. sliding glass door. That was silly. Over here on this side where the sliding door is, same insulation, 1.5 inch for the plywood, and I'm going to finish it off the same way with a piece of 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch aluminum. But just to be sure that this insulation doesn't compress from us going up and down constantly in the van, I'm going to cut away at this insulation 1 inch and put in this 1 inch square tubing. That 1 inch square tubing will go underneath the plywood, and then this will go on top. And that way, as we get in and out over the years, this will not compress. I'll show you that in a few moments. Okay, I took the floor off, cut away 1 inch of insulation, and installed the aluminum bar. And then this piece of aluminum will fit right over that and will get screwed down on the top. And that will provide us with a durable entryway. This aluminum, the floor that will go underneath the aluminum, and when I've completed the build, all of this will be attached permanently. One step at a time. Don't want to make anything permanent until I've got everything complete.